increased blood flow. Now first, what is the reason why there is increased blood flow to the lungs during exercise? Will the bone marrow synthesize more red blood cells?
Compensate for the need for oxygen sa body.
Sige. Okay, write that one. I will accept. Increased blood flow to the lungs during exercise is to meet the increased demand of the muscles for oxygen. So what will the body do so that more blood can flow to the lungs to become oxygenated? And so the oxygenated blood will be able to meet the increased demand for oxygen. What's the mechanism? Blood in the gastrointestinal tract will be diverted towards the lungs. That's one. There will be splanchnic vasoconstriction. So there is no actual increase in the blood in the body. It's the same, 4 to 6 liters per minute. But since blood is not needed for digestion because you do not do exercise after eating, right? That's post-absorption. So some of the blood from the gastrointestinal tract will be diverted to the lungs to increase the blood flow, and it will be accommodated by the lungs via opening up of dormant capillaries and distension of existing capillaries, and the result in the increase in the pulmonary arterial pressure is little only because of the dampening effect of the opening up of the dormant capillaries and distension. So give now the three effects of the ability of the lungs to accommodate greatly increased blood flow during exercise. 1. CE, it will conserve energy in the right portion of the heart. So the right portion of the heart, you have right atrium and right ventricle. Okay? Now, if pulmonary arterial pressure will only rise a little because of the opening up of dormant capillaries and distension of existing capillaries in the lung, then there is only little ATP consumed by the right atrium and the right ventricle, especially right ventricle, in pumping blood into the lungs because of the dampening effect of the opening up of the dormant capillaries and distension. That's why the right side of the heart conserves energy that it will utilize, especially the right ventricle, for the cardiac muscles in the right ventricle to contract because the resistance offered in the lungs will be little only. Another, if there is dampening of the blood flowing into it, the pressure, then the pulmonary capillary hydrostatic pressure will rise a little only. The pulmonary capillary hydrostatic pressure. If there is only little increase in the pulmonary capillary hydrostatic pressure, it will prevent pulmonary edema to develop during exercise, especially heavy exercise. So later we'll discuss the mechanism on how pulmonary edema will develop if there will be disturbance in the different pressures, okay, in the pulmonary capillary hydrostatic, colloidosmotic pressure in the capillary, then the colloidosmotic pressure in the interstitial space and the interstitial pressure in the spaces between the alveoli and the capillary. Now, let's discuss function of the pulmonary circulation when the left atrial pressure will rise as a result of left-sided heart failure. Normal atrial pressure is 1 to 5 millimeters mercury. Okay, left atrial pressure. Up to how many millimeters mercury will left atrial pressure increase during the most strenuous exercise? It is only up to 6 millimeters mercury. So there is only a rise in 1 because the normal is 1 to 5. Therefore, if the left atrial pressure will rise only 1 millimeter mercury, then it cannot cause significant pulmonary edema. Okay. So why is it that small changes in left atrial pressure have virtually no effect on the pulmonary circulatory function? It's because when the left atrial pressure will increase, there will be expansion of the pulmonary venous blood vessels. And then, opening up of dormant capillaries. So therefore, the left atrial pressure cannot be reflected back into the lungs in the form of an increased pulmonary capillary hydrostatic pressure. Because of the opening up of the dormant capillaries and distension of existing capillaries, plus expansion of the pulmonary venules. So what is the effect of initial rise in atrial pressure up to 7 or even 8? It has no significant effect to cause pulmonary edema. But what happens when the left atrial pressure rises above 30 millimeters mercury? It causes now pulmonary edema. So let's discuss how an increase in the left atrial pressure above 30 millimeters mercury will cause pulmonary edema. So what will happen when the left side of the heart will fail? Left atrial pressure, acute, can cause during acute left-sided heart failure. If it is 30, explain how will it cause pulmonary edema. Okay. So there are two forces tending to cause fluid movement between the pulmonary capillary and the interstitial, between the pulmonary capillary and the alveolus and the interstitial space. The first group of forces will be the force tending to cause movement of fluid out of the capillary. And what are these forces? 1, the pulmonary capillary hydrostatic pressure. Second, the interstitial fluid colloid osmotic pressure. Because there are proteins in the interstitial spaces and it will act as an osmotic agent, drawing water from the capillary, causing them to move the water molecules into the interstitial space, and plus the negative interstitial pressure, creating a suction-like effect, causing movement of fluid. Okay, so moving fluid outward, there are 3 pressures. What about the fluid causing force tending to cause absorption of fluid from the interstitial spaces into the pulmonary capillary? There's only one, your plasma colloid osmotic pressure. Now, if you get the sum of these 3 pressures, pulmonary capillary hydrostatic, pulmonary capillary colloid osmotic pressure, interstitial colloid osmotic pressure, and the negative interstitial fluid pressure, 7, 14, and 8, the total will be 29. And what about the pulmonary capillary colloid osmotic pressure? It is 28. So if you subtract the force tending to cause movement of fluid into the interstitial space and the force causing absorption of fluid into the interstitial space, 29 minus 28 equals 1. So this is not mean, but the net filtration pressure, it's just plus 1. What's the meaning or effect of the net filtration pressure of plus 1? Fluid will still move into the interstitial spaces because of a net filtration pressure of 1 millimeter mercury. And why is it that even if fluid will move into the interstitial space, it cannot accumulate and cause development of edema? It is because of the presence of your 1, the lymphatic channels in the interstitial spaces where the pressure is negative, creating like a suction effect to drain excess fluid accumulating in the interstitial space. And the other factor is in the pulmonary capillary because of the osmotic pressure, tending to cause absorption again of the fluid, moving into the interstitial space back into the pulmonary capillary. So pulmonary, therefore, edema can only occur if there is a disturbance in these two forces. Forces tending to cause movement of fluid out of the capillary, and forces causing absorption of fluid from the interstitial space into the pulmonary capillary. So let's look at certain diseases disturbing these two forces. Okay. So before that, we'll discuss the mechanism in keeping the alveoli dry. So how is an extra fluid accumulating in the alveoli removed? Okay. One, by the negative interstitial pressure, creating a suction-like effect. So excess water in the alveoli can pass through the pores and move into the interstitial space. And from the interstitial space, it is drained by the pulmonary lymphatics. So in that way, the alveoli is kept dry. Take note, not literally dry. Why? If you make the alveoli literally dry, there will be no more surface tension. In absence of surface tension, can cause what? Diba, what did we say? If there is surface tension, its role during expiration is elastic recoil. So it will affect elastic recoil if you keep the alveoli literally dry. Okay? So how will pulmonary edema will develop? As we have said, disturbance in these two forces. So we will discuss now the different mechanism in the development of pulmonary edema. Number one, if you have left-sided heart failure or a mitral valve disease. Let's start with left-sided heart failure. You have a patient who has chronic hypertension and the blood pressure is not controlled. So when there is hypertension, what is happening? Anybody? What is the effect of hypertension on resistance to flow of blood in the arteries? Raise your hand. So increase resistance. So the arteries will resist flow of blood. How will flow of blood occur? Because the heart pumps. It is a pumping station. When it pumps, the muscle will contract. It will generate pressure. Diba? As it generates pressure, it is able to propel blood. So it will reach the tissues via the different arteries. But if there is hypertension, as the heart will contract, generating a pressure to propel the blood, the arteries will offer resistance. Okay? If the arteries will offer resistance, in what manner? One, via contraction of the smooth muscles surrounding the arteries. If it will contract, the lumen of the artery becomes narrow. What did we say? The smaller the radius, the higher will be the resistance. This time to blood flow, we are talking about blood flow. So if the resistance to blood flow is increased in the peripheral arteries, what will happen? To overcome the resistance so that blood can still be pumped, the left ventricle will contract harder and harder to generate a higher pressure to overcome the resistance. And if it is not treated, the hypertension, what will happen? Eventually, it will result to left ventricular hypertrophy. And what's the reason why there is hypertrophy of the left ventricle? So there will be more cardiac muscle cells and the size will increase so that it can generate greater force to overcome the resistance. Now with chronicity, what will be the effect? The endpoint of left ventricular hypertrophy will be left ventricular failure or left-sided heart failure. So what is now failure? It results now to impaired contractility of the left ventricle. When there is impairment in the contractility of the muscles in the left ventricle, what will happen? Blood return to the left side of the heart from the lungs. If there is not enough pressure generated because of the impaired contractility, it will accumulate in the left ventricle, the blood. Only a little will be ejected into the aorta, resulting to damming or accumulation of blood. When the blood accumulates in the left ventricle, there is an increase in the hydrostatic pressure. It will be reflected back into the left atrium. So left atrial pressure now will increase. Okay? If the increase in the left atrial pressure is high, 30 millimeters mercury or above, what will happen? It will increase the pulmonary capillary hydrostatic pressure beyond 28 millimeters mercury. So if the hydrostatic pressure now will be beyond 28 millimeters mercury, then water will now move into the interstitial spaces a lot more than what the lymphatic channels can drain, leading to development of pulmonary edema. And water molecules from the interstitial spaces can also move into the alveoli via the pores. Okay? So that's how pulmonary edema will develop in a patient with left-sided heart failure. Okay, what about mitral valve disease? If you have mitral valve stenosis, the opening here is so small, so that blood moves moving from the lungs into the left atrium. It cannot be emptied into the left ventricle because of a narrow opening in mitral valve stenosis. Blood will accumulate in the left atrium. It increases again left atrial pressure. And a very high left atrial pressure will increase again the pulmonary capillary hydrostatic pressure greater than 28 millimeters mercury. So it will now lead to pulmonary edema. So any disturbance in the forces. Okay? So the force that is now disturbed is the forces tending to cause movement of fluid from the capillary into the interstitial spaces. Sorry. What about in mitral valve prolapse? What will happen? If there is prolapse, then blood ejected by the left ventricle, some of them will not move into the aorta because there is regurgitation. And if there is regurgitation of blood back into the left ventricle, it will accumulate, open the mitral valve, and then the pressure is reflected again into the left atrium, increasing left atrial pressure, increasing also the pulmonary capillary hydrostatic pressure. So those are the mechanisms by which pulmonary edema will develop among patients with left-sided heart failure in mitral valve disease, either stenosis or regurgitation, or in mitral valve prolapse. What about in damaged pulmonary capillary membrane? So what can cause damage to the membrane of the pulmonary capillary that will cause development of pulmonary edema? So you have eye infection, for example pneumonia, affecting the lungs. So there are some organisms that can generate toxins. Okay? So in infection, if the microorganism will generate a toxin, it will cause a damage to the pulmonary capillary membrane. Once the pulmonary capillary membrane will be damaged, the albumin responsible in generating colloid osmotic pressure will move from the capillary into the interstitial space. Therefore, this colloid osmotic pressure will be reduced as the albumin will move out, and the interstitial colloid osmotic pressure will be greater than the pulmonary capillary colloid osmotic pressure. So therefore, more albumin in the interstitial space than inside the capillary. So it will exert an osmotic effect. More solutes, less water. Less solute, more water. So the water from the capillary will move into the interstitial space, obeying the law of osmosis. So what is ING? Inhalation of noxious gases. What gases? Sulfur dioxide and chlorine gas. Sulfur dioxide and chlorine gas. These two gases can also damage the pulmonary capillary membrane, just like in infection affecting the lungs. And it will also cause movement of albumin from the capillary into the interstitial space. So what's the role of the colloid osmotic pressure inside the capillaries, both in the lungs and in the systemic tissues? It tries to absorb water from the extracellular fluid or interstitial spaces back onto the capillary, and the other, it will serve to hold the blood inside the capillary, preventing movement of water from the interstitial space into in the pulmonary capillary into the interstitial spaces. Okay? So this is how damage to the pulmonary capillary membrane will lead to development of pulmonary edema. In infection, the toxin will damage the pulmonary capillary membrane. Inhalation of noxious gases, sulfur dioxide and chlorine gas will also damage the membrane, causing leaking of albumin from the capillary into the interstitial space, increasing the interstitial colloid osmotic pressure, creating an osmotic effect. So water from the capillary will move now into the interstitial space via a process we call osmosis. Now, what is this pulmonary edema safety factor? When will significant pulmonary edema develop? It develops only if the pulmonary capillary hydrostatic pressure will be greater than the pulmonary capillary colloid osmotic pressure. As long as this is less than the pulmonary capillary hydrostatic pressure, less than 28, no pulmonary edema will occur. Why? Because the oncotic pressure or osmotic pressure is higher than the pulmonary capillary pressure. Blood will be held inside the blood vessel. Question?
Doc, negative 28 is the threshold.
Sorry. Do not be confused with these signs negative. Disregard the signs. This is 28, just 28 millimeters mercury. Just 7. Disregard the sign. The sign with a negative is this negative interstitial pressure. Okay? This is positive, positive. Tiniray negative ang 8. Huh? Okay. So this is an experiment done among animals to determine, okay, at what left atrial pressure significant pulmonary edema will occur. On the y-axis is the rate of edema formation, and on the x-axis is the left atrial pressure. So they try to increase the left atrial pressure 5, 10, 15, 20, and at 23 the rate of edema formation starts to increase. Okay? So therefore, in lower animals, if the left atrial pressure will now be higher than 23 millimeters mercury, then what is its effect on the forces? These two forces, it will now increase the pulmonary capillary hydrostatic pressure. It becomes greater than the colloid osmotic pressure. Okay? So what about in human beings? So, what did we say? The capillary hydrostatic pressure has to rise higher than the plasma osmotic pressure. So what is the acute safety factor against pulmonary edema? 28 minus 7 equals 21. 21 plus 7, 28 or higher, more than 28, then edema will now occur. Okay? So up to how much pulmonary capillary pressure rise will now cause pulmonary edema? This will rise higher than 28 because it becomes greater than the pulmonary capillary osmotic pressure. So, what is a hydrostatic pressure? It is a pressure exerted by water molecules found in the blood, in the plasma. So that when the hydrostatic pressure will be greater than 28, there will be further more movement of water from the capillary into the interstitial spaces. So up to how much pulmonary capillary pressure increase can restal pulmonary occur? When the increase in the pulmonary capillary pressure will now be between 25 to 30. And when death can ensue in acute left-sided heart failure in 30 minutes. So you now have a patient with acute left-sided heart failure in the emergency room. In less than 30 minutes, your patient can die. What is the message? That when you will be acting as emergency room physicians, you have to think quick, otherwise your patient will die. Okay? So how will you treat your patient? You cannot treat until you are able to establish the diagnosis. So you have to be quick in asking the history of the patient's illness, in doing physical examination, in submitting patients for diagnostic imaging procedures, so that you can see that there is a pulmonary edema occurring, secondary to left-sided heart failure. Okay? So you must know what imaging procedure to request so that you can see if there is pulmonary edema now. Okay? That's what will happen to you in the hospital. Okay? So you cannot afford your brain to be loading. Unsa gani ito? Mamatay ang pasyente.
Manawag minimo, Dok.
Masigi pa mo muna-muna. Mamatay ang pasyente. Help! Why mo tabang niyo mo? Ano? Kasabaan ka sa residente. Unsa? O sige, Glenn. Sige, go.
What if to the
Unsa?
patient kay dili na makato?
Oh, the more you know, you need to know what to do. Oh. Panangitan, ang patient, makuha na, mag-tissue hypoxia na kay what is the effect of pulmonary edema, pulmonary ventilation? So let's apply what we have discussed. Mechanics of pulmonary ventilation. Pulmonary edema will restrict expansion of the alveoli. If the alveoli cannot expand the lung, then there is no negative pressure, alveolar pressure that will be generated. Air cannot move into the lungs. Patient will be hypoxic. Patient will appear cyanotic. Mas cyanotic ang patient, mag-change na ang level of consciousness. Why? Because there will be no oxygen moving into the brain. If the brain for 3 to 5 minutes wala oxygen, automatic, it can cause death of the brain. So, the more if the patient di motingog, meaning the patient is in a critical situation now. Kung saan man yung pag-interview, no, you cannot interview anymore. You ask the significant others, and if the significant others is not around, you do your physical examination based on the color of the patient. So what could be the possible cause of cyanosis? So it's either there is heart problem or there is lung problem, right? So in all clinical scenarios, whether you can interview or you cannot interview the patient, you can still do something. If you really are prepared to handle your patient when you are assigned in the emergency room. Okay? You know what? Kung intern pa ta sometimes, in my experience, when I was assigned at Chongwa during internship and PGI, the ER nurse are better than the medical clerks. They have been seeing these patients, critical patients, they already know what to do. Ngayon, nung gihapon na siya, intern, clerk, what will we do? Just to test you. Okay? So you have to do your part. That's why we have these basic concepts in first year that you will apply to a clinical case so that you will understand, be able to diagnose, assess the patient, and do intervention to save your patient. Okay? Sige. But do not worry, somebody will still help you in the emergency room. You just have to do your part. Now, if the condition, the rise in pulmonary capillary pressure is something chronic, then it cannot readily result to the death of the patient because the lungs will become more resistant to pulmonary edema. How? Expansion of the lymphatic venules or the lymphatic system. So that there will be increased drainage of excess water in the interstitial spaces. Do not worry when you will be assigned in the emergency room or any clinical areas. Why? There is now what we call clinical practice guideline. During our time, we do not have this clinical practice guideline. What is clinical practice guideline? In the clinical practice guideline, you have diseases. It will tell you what questions to ask during interviewing the patient to know the history of the patient's illness. And then it will be found there what signs to look for during physical examination. That will help you diagnose the disease of the patient. And after that, it will tell you also what laboratory tests, what imaging procedures to request. And then, based on the results of the imaging procedure and laboratory test, it will tell you also what drugs to use to treat the patient. But you do not depend on it only because you need to understand why these are the tests recommended, why these are the signs you have to look for, and why these are the informations that you need to gather during history taking. You should be able to defend when the consultants will ask you about all these things also. Okay, so all diseases, practically, you have clinical practice guidelines locally and internationally. There are international clinical practice guidelines. So up to what value does the pulmonary capillary pressure rise in patients with chronic mitral stenosis before lethal pulmonary edema will occur? 40 to 45 millimeters mercury. So let's discuss now the pleural fluid. Describe the pleural membrane. The pleural membrane are the membranes covering the lungs, the visceral pleura,